Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have Danmaku Kentei Shiken Daioujou Hen, a bullet hell proficiency test. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From publisher Cave, Danmaku Kentei Shiken Daioujou Hen originally released for feature phones in 2006. So that's basically your flip phones of that era, which that still really blows my mind. Now, 15 years later, it's available for the Nintendo Switch, courtesy of publisher Gmode, as part of their Gmode Archive Plus titles. Although, at this time, it's only available on the Japanese eShop. Their titles have released internationally before, but as I said, at this time, this one has not. Nor has the previous Cave title that they've released, Dodonpachi Daioujou DX, that one has not released outside of Japan either. So the title roughly translates to Bullet Hell Proficiency Test Blissful Death Edition. And that's really kind of just describes what this title is. It's a really interesting proficiency test for bullet hells that helps you both grade yourself as well as improve your skills based off of the assets from Cave's Daioujou DX title that they previously released for feature phones, which I think is just utterly fascinating. Although, with this one being an import title, you might want to kind of like just rather than dive into this one, see if this is something that you're interested in based off of this, and then decide if it's worth your effort to pick up. So first we find ourselves at this screen when you start up the game. It has that really nice looking feature phone presentation there showing you the date that this title originally released, March 22nd, 2006. There's also some additional information over here on the right with the game's title, the genre, shooting, and a little bit of a description. Starting the game, this starts up the emulation for the flip phone itself, which is really neat. It just blows my mind that this is a title you would pick up on a phone of that era and you'd be playing it with the keypad. It just doesn't strike me as something that sounds fun, but it would totally work. So the presentation here is really nice, but there are some things that I'm going to change real quick. So if you press the minus or the plus, it brings up this screen here. And this screen has our controls in it, although I'll go over those in just a moment. Then you also have a couple options. There's the frame, which will have that cell phone frame with or without when we want it without. There's also a filter which we'll leave on, and your online rankings can also be found here. Exiting this screen, once you press the button to start the game, you have your game start and you've got options which are really basic. It just basically tells you, or rather allows you to turn on the sound or the vibration or off. And then under help, it's just really interesting, once again, just thinking that you'd be playing this with your keypad. That also gives you a little bit of information on how to use the various systems in the game itself. So starting the game, we're taken to your player select. Here you select between the type A or the type B. The biggest difference between these two is speed. The type A is faster, B is a little bit slower, and also the spread of your shot. So type A is more of a straight shot, type B is a spread. And then you select your doll, the element doll. Here, once again, we've got like Shadia, Linian, and Exia. So these are the same as the element dolls from Dodonpachi Daioujou DX, and and actually just Daioujou as well. So for our purposes, we want to take Lian as she enhances lasers. Shoria, let's see, enhances your shot, but since we're only fighting bosses here, that's not as useful. And Exia enhances both, but she only provides one bomb. We want the additional bombs. Once you've selected your ship and your element doll, we're taken to your stage select. Initially, you'll just have stage Suzaku available, but completing objectives, and that's a frustration I'll get to in just a second, you'll unlock additional stages such as stage Byako, Seiru, and Genbu. There are two stages here that I still haven't unlocked, and the thing of it is I'm not sure how to unlock it, because this description here just basically says you unlock this stage by completing certain objectives, and it's not telling you what those objectives are. And as there's not much information available about this game online, that can kind of be a bit of a frustration. And that's one of the things that is interesting as well about feature phone games in general. So this is kind of going outside of my channel a little bit, but the YouTube channel Did You Know Gaming recently did a great video about feature phones and how they're basically the whole genre, or not genre, the whole platform is slowly dying, fading away, and really hurting the game preservation for all the tons of titles that released on them. Anyway, so back to Danmaku Kentei Shiken, our wonderful Blissful Death Edition proficiency test. So the first time you select the stage, you'll just be thrown right in there, but after you've played it a few times, you'll have the selection here, and that just basically sets you on which number of boss you want to face. That'll be made clear here in just a moment. So starting the game, we're actually fighting a boss for our first time, but this will give me a quick opportunity to talk a little bit about the controls. So this is basically your Dodonpachi setup, where you've got, if we were to go and rapid fire our shot, it remains this shot here. If we hold down our fire button, it becomes the laser. In addition, we also have a bomb, which for Dodonpachi Daioujou, if you have a hyper item, it will activate your hyper first, and then additionally it will activate your bomb afterwards if you happen to press it again, or if you happen to not have a hyper item and you just press your bomb button, of course you'll get your bomb. And the bomb comes in two flavors, which I will show you here in just a moment, as well as the hyper itself. So, as you might have noticed though, I'm fighting the same boss over and over again. If you happen to die, it gives you this quick ranking where it tabulates the number of stars you got, the number of boss hits just for your points, and then it gives you a grade, or rank rather. And that rank is similar to the rank you would see in various Japanese or other Eastern disciplines, where it's initially you start out with the Q, so that's Jukyu, and then you go all the way up through the ranks, so rank 10, let's see, all the way up to rank 1, and then you end up, well rather the Q, and you end up getting to, well, at least in martial arts, Shodan, which would be a black belt, and then you start so it counts down from 10 to 1, and then starts at 1 and counts up from there. So if you're familiar with martial art rankings, that's basically what that is. So the game itself this is basically just it. We're fighting the same boss over and over again in progressively harder configurations. So initially, when you're first playing it, you'll the boss will have one pattern, and then once we defeat that boss, we'll be given a boss with a different pattern. So let's use our hyper for the first time. So if you don't have a hyper item, you would activate your bomb, but having a hyper, I guess we'll wait for the next boss to spawn, we get our hyper shot. So if we're using our regular shot, it looks like this. If we're using our laser, it looks like this. There's a meter on the left there, the green one, that's counting down when we're using the hyper. Once that's gone, we're back to our normal shot. The pink meter is filling up as we accumulate hits, and that will provide us with the hyper item that we want for activating that hyper. We can store several of these hyper items, and the more we have, the longer the hyper will last, as well as the more powerful it will be. In addition to that particular system, and also if you have more hyper items, when you activate it, it'll turn the bullets on the screen into stars, the same way as if we activate a bomb. So the bomb behaves differently depending on if you're using your normal shot or if you're using your laser. So if you're using the normal shot or not shooting at all, it becomes the spread bomb here, and normal use of the bomb will always give you stars from the bullets that are on the screen. So if you happen to be using, so I did pick up a hyper item, so we'll burn off that real quick. So if you happen to be using your laser, the bomb acts as like a laser amplification, basically making your laser more powerful, and it also has the interesting fact that your laser will both cancel bullets and it has recoil to it. It pushes you back. It's just a neat little feature. So as you can see here, this is basically how we're progressing against stage Suzaku. We're just like fighting this boss over and over again. Each time it tells us which number we've defeated, and it brings on the next one with different attack patterns and progressively harder attack patterns. So once we're defeated, we'll see that grade screen yet again. Simulation out. 139 stars, 524 hit. All that's tabulated together into our score, and we receive our grade, which I kind of skipped past. That was like Sankyu, I believe. And then if you've completed the objectives, we can move on to an additional stage. That's basically what we have here as far as Danmaku Kentei Shiken, the bullet hell proficiency test. So it's basically practicing against the same boss, getting better and better with different versions and higher difficulties of the boss, and then we ultimately end up getting a grade for it as well. As I mentioned, starting off, so most of the stages have gotten to the point where I'm at least ranked as like a Shodan, but in general my overall rank is still EQ, so like the first rank 1 before we move on to like the master or the beginning stage ranking, which I really kind of like that the whole point of this is you're like testing yourself, getting better, and trying to get progressively higher on the rank. In addition, so one thing that's really nice about this particular version is the online ranking. So here you have your online rank, and to be honest, I believe it appears like the original version would have had online ranking as well. But here you can see, so in Stage Suzaku, I'm currently rank 85. With Type B, it tells you which doll you had and then what boss number you got up to. I love that kind of information, and you can kind of see what everybody else went and did as well. You've got this for all the stages. And from this, we can kind of also get an idea of how many stages we have. So you've got Kyoryu A, Kyoryu B, and Hibachi, which I haven't unlocked at this point. So there you have it. That's the bullet hell proficiency test served up for your enjoyment. This is one that I really hope gets a release outside of the Japanese eShop, as I want it available to a wider audience rather than just the enthusiasts that are willing to import titles. The difficulties that that happens to be. And so what are the minus flavors? So one big issue I do take with the game is it lacks music. So there's just the same music track that you just hear over and over and over and over again, and it just gets old. So especially where a run can be several minutes of fighting these bosses. So if you're looking to pick this one up and just enjoying your time with it, it might not be a bad idea to have some additional music available to play while you're playing this, just so you can enjoy that element of it. Also, there's just that frustration with having unclear objectives as how you unlock the additional stages. I'm assuming it's just getting better and more proficient in playing the stages a certain amount of times, but it doesn't say, and that information really isn't readily available. Plus flavors, though, I do really like how this game helps you improve yourself and also challenges you with the leaderboards. So having the scores, the different bosses, the rankings, all of that just adds up to a really satisfying experience when you've been able to defeat, say your best was getting up to boss 30 and then you managed to push on to boss 35. That's a really, really good feeling. And then there's also just the preserving this really interesting page in both Cave's history and shoot 'em up history in general. It's really, I do really appreciate things like this Gmode archive, as well as the arcade archives and other titles that just preserve titles that might otherwise be lost just due to like availability and difficulty in playing them. So at the end of the day, this is a really interesting title that I'm not sure I can recommend to everybody, but if you're both a fan of like cave shoot 'em ups and interesting video game history as is, this is one that I recommend you pick up, especially if it's been released internationally, which once again at the time of this recording it has not been, but here's hoping. Alright, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining me this week, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.